All right, final one, finally here in this lengthy Big Ten preview.
18 of 18.
18 of 18 is the Wisconsin Badgers right now. Luke Fickell entered Wisconsin with a lot of hype. He led Cincinnati to the college football playoff, the first ever Group of Five school to make it that far. However, he has yet to find his footing as Wisconsin's head coach with a 13-13 record through 2 years so far. That included a 5-7 record this past year, the first time that Wisconsin missed a bowl game since 2001. Over 2 decades since Wisconsin missed a bowl game, and it happened this past year in 2024. Kind of an uphill battle in 2025. They face the hardest schedule in the country, according to PFF's power rankings. They have a very good secondary and a very good offensive line are the strengths of the team, but there are still questions about the rest of the defense, in addition to where will the offense come from. But Dalton, that secondary for Wisconsin should be, once again, a really strong unit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at just some of the players that they have. You've got Preston Zachman. You've got Ricardo Hallman. You've got it's just that's the part where the Luke Fickell blueprint is on it, where you go, okay, if you're going to beat Wisconsin, you're going to have to beat them up front. You're going to have to beat them physically, which is still not an easy thing to do, right? I mean, you look at a team that they have the big players on the offensive and defensive lines. It's still Big Ten football, right? But you got to beat them running the ball. They just, I think that's the biggest thing, is especially with Hallman and Zachman back there, they don't give up big plays. Hallman's the ball hawk. Zachman's a really good tackler who doesn't allow things to get behind him. So I think when you're looking at this defense, you're going, okay, just like you had at Cincinnati back in the day with Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant and those guys, you go, okay, they're not going to give up big plays. You got to beat them. If you're going to beat them, you got to beat them slow and steady. But it's been something teams have been able to do lately, especially with their lack of offense.
Yeah, 20th best coverage grade in the Power 4 last year. Should be, again, a really good unit in 2025. The weakness, though, is up front, in the front seven of that defense right now. Only 2 players in Wisconsin's front seven had 70-plus PFF grades in 2024. Both of them are no longer with the program. They did add a few projected starters in the transfer portal, and they'll need those players to step up in order to improve the team's run defense, which was 120th in PFF grade last year, and pass rush, which was 67th in the country last year too. So I'm a little worried about that front seven for Wisconsin right now.
Yeah, I mean that's the part, is against a lot of these teams, especially in that kind of in that old Big Ten West division, right? When you talk about the Minnesotas and Iowas of the world, that they want to run the football, and if you're not able to stop the run, even when you're playing, say, Penn State or Michigan, whoever head to head, you're talking about a team that needs to be more physical. And it's only odd because we're so used to Wisconsin being the more physical team on the field all the time, right? I mean, that's just the thing. But their secondary, at least if you're not giving up explosive plays, you give your front seven a chance to operate, and you know what type of game you're playing.
All right, Dalton, tell me more about the transfer quarterback coming in Billy Edwards Jr. from Maryland.
Yeah, Billy Edwards Jr. He's got a lot of tools. Look, if you're looking for a guy who can throw it down the field vertically and is a little bit of an athlete, I think you have a guy who has potential for them, right? Especially for a Wisconsin passing attack that has lacked explosiveness for the last couple of years. So I think when you're looking at Edwards, good arm. He's got a moon ball to the outside. He likes to throw the ball up the seam. And I think what you liked at Maryland last year, in part because of their poor pass protection, was he had the third fastest average time to throw in the country, and yet he found ways to attack downfield. It allowed him to beat the blitzes that everybody was throwing his way at Maryland, and he's really, I think, the deep ball, right? Just the threat of having that deep ball in an offense, in this offense especially, that really is missing that a lot. If he can get a deep ball to guys like Vinny Anthony on the outside, then you've got a different kind of offense for Wisconsin here, because that's what they've been missing. They can't work the ball downfield. The one problem with Edwards is got off to a really hot start. Obviously, he had Ty Felton and Caden Prather. Really dropped off when he got into Big Ten play, right? I think it was through week 8. He had 18 big-time throws. That was a top 10 mark in the country. But when you get into Big Ten play from week 5 on, 61.4 passing grade. Can he do it against the better defenses? Can he do it in those big games and this really hard schedule that they're playing? I think that's the issue, is can he not stare down his first target and try to force passes where they shouldn't be? So I want to see him kind of take a step up against the better competition. I know he can beat the G5 teams and the teams he's supposed to beat, but I think that's going to be the idea with Edwards, is we need more explosive plays. This is the guy we went and got to do it.
Absolutely. And his star offensive tackle blocking for him is Riley Mahlman, who entered last year as our number 8 tackle in the country and is once again in the top 10 in 2025 too. Second most valuable returning Power 4 tackle over the last 2 years, according to PFF's wins above average metric. 79.6 PFF grade, over those last 2 years is tied for 34th among all tackles in the nation. And the guy tied with him at 34 is Olu Fashanu, who was a top 15 pick in the 2024 NFL draft. A good pass blocker and a good run blocker. 75-plus grades in each of those over the last 2 years, too. So Wisconsin always has a really good offensive line, it feels like, and Riley Mahlman is keeping that tradition alive right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's Wisconsin. I don't know.
Yeah.
We could have almost skipped over that part of it going, oh, they're going to have a pretty good offensive line. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to. They always do, especially with Mahlman in pass protection off that right side.
Who was the star defensive player in that secondary we talked about before for Wisconsin?
Look, they lost one really fundamentally sound, versatile safety in Hunter Wohler, but they've got another one coming back in Preston Zachman, and I think that's what jumps out at you when you watch him snap to snap. He can do a little bit of everything, whether it's in the box, playing a deep half, getting back in coverage. He's a really good tackler. I think it just every snap he's very consistent, right? He doesn't make all of the flashiest plays in the world, but Preston Zachman is the exact type of player that Luke Fickell likes to have at safety. It's just fundamentally sound. He doesn't miss tackles. He does a little bit of everything. I think that's a player in the middle of your defense that really, he's a leader, right? He's a guy who's a leader back there, and you know he's going to do his job. I think he's obviously learned a lot from Hunter Wohler. He's not as big as Wohler, but he plays a very similar style to me.
So Wisconsin's over-under right now is set at 5.5, which means basically Vegas is saying either make a bowl game or don't for Wisconsin next year. I'm trying to look at the last time they missed multiple bowl games in a row. That was back in 1991 and 1992 was the last time they missed 2 bowl games in a row. Will that happen in 2025, Dalton, as they face, keep in mind, the hardest schedule in the country according to our power rankings?
Yeah, I think I'm in on the under. I don't know what I can trust on this offense. Because their best receiver and Will Pauling left. I think Tawi Walker was their leading rusher last year, and he left and went to Cincinnati. They have another new quarterback who wasn't great last year and is now playing on a team. Look, last year, Billy Edwards had Ty Felton and Caden Prather at Maryland. To me, both of those guys are better than anything that Wisconsin has currently at receiver. Then you talk about, okay, there's an out-of-conference game. They got to go down to Alabama. That's going to be tough. I just offensively, their defense will be solid. Luke Fickell's defenses are always solid. But offensively, I just don't know what can I rely on other than the offensive line being pretty solid, which is always a thing. But the skill players, it just seems like they're not fixing this problem.
Yeah.
They lost their leading rusher. I think they lost their leading receiver. Passing, I mean, that's where I'm at, and especially against that schedule with all these good defenses, I think I'm in on the under again for Wisconsin.
I'm taking the under, too. I mean, look at that schedule right now. You're at Alabama. You got Oregon at Oregon. You got Ohio State. You got Illinois. You're at Indiana. You're at Michigan. Just a lot of games that I don't think Wisconsin should be winning. And then there's a couple other toss-ups, too, like Washington at home, too. You're at Minnesota. You're hosting Iowa, too. A lot of games I think Wisconsin could and should lose next year. I'm taking the under. I know it's kind of crazy to say Wisconsin missed 2 straight bowl games, but it's a hard schedule in the country. And like Dalton said, there's a lot of question marks offensively and defensively right now. I'm taking the under and saying Wisconsin's probably going to go around 4-8 or 5-7 next year. And then some pressure starting to mount on Luke Fickell in that program that happens.
The defense will keep them in it every week. They will. But I for their offense to succeed, I mean, they just basically, to me, they're basically just hoping that Billy Edwards becomes a star.
Yeah.
And I don't have a ton of faith in that.